This 911 Strong podcast is brought to you by our partners at the Police Credit Union of California.
As a financial institution founded by law enforcement for law enforcement and their families over 65 years ago, they have the experience and understanding to help you with all your financial needs,
including exclusive products designed specifically for law enforcement professionals. To become a member today, visit thepolicecu.org. That's the police, the letter C, and the letter U.org.
Or call 800-222-1391 and tell them you heard about them from the 911 Strong podcast.
Station to all units.
Prepare to copy.
You're listening to the 911 Strong podcast.
Don't act like I never told you.
With Aram and Kristen, bringing you stimulating discussion.
No, I like the sound of that.
An entertaining conversation.
And now, here's Kristen and Aram.
Hey friends, welcome back to the 911 Strong podcast. I am Aram Choe, and wouldn't you know it, my co-host Kristen, she's busy working. A lot like a lot of agencies out there, we're running short, and dispatch is not one of those areas that is immune to that as well. Dispatch is running short as well. So we're going to do another episode with just me. Hope you guys don't mind listening to little old me on this episode. But this episode, we're going to talk about something bigger than the both of us. We're going to talk about some of our recent officers that have been murdered in the line of duty. Unfortunately, we've had some officers gunned down, and it's happened in just such a short period of time. And it's probably discouraging a lot of people right now. But let's talk about some of these officers and get to know who they are, and share a little bit more than what the news wants to tell us. We know what happened; they were gunned down, but who were these people? They were humans behind the badge, behind the uniform. They were human beings, and I think a lot of people forget. They can't empathize with police officers because they don't view us as human. And the thing is, we're human beings. We have families. I mean, look at yours truly. I have a wife and kids, and I don't purport to be a robot. It's and it's something that hits home too. So, I've lost two of my partners recently. Earlier this year, in June, Sergeant Michael Paredes and Officer Joseph Santana. They are a big part of what keeps me motivated to keep training and keep fighting. Even at this stage of my career, I have 23 years on the job. I'm 45 years old, but I'm not giving up. I'm in great shape right now. I continually train, and I mentor young officers on just personal safety. It's just so that if I could stop one officer from being murdered because of my example, I'm going to do that. And the Lord blessed me with this platform to be able to influence others and to talk about that. And I think training is a big part of it, personal training. Granted, ambushes are going to happen, but I'm a firm believer, if you give somebody a fighting chance, it's exactly what that is. They'll have a fighting chance. All right, but before we get to this next episode, I have to acknowledge our sponsor, that's just been tremendous in their support. As a matter of fact, when Sergeant Paredes and Officer Santana died, they made a donation of a couple of Glocks so we can raffle them off at our agency. But you've heard us talking about how great they are. That's ProForce Law Enforcement in Brea, California. It's October right now, and they're about as busy as they can be. They're a Glock Blue Ribbon dealer, and they have Glocktoberfest. Glocktoberfest is unique in that they have just a tremendous supply of Glocks ready to go in October. And right now, if you go to ProForce in Brea and purchase your Glock, and they all go for about $400, and they're all as reliable as can be. I own a couple Glocks, and you can outfit them. You know what I like about Glocks? They're like Jeeps, and like Jeeps, you buy them, and they're like adult Legos. You're always adding accessories, and a lot of them are bolt-on, bolt-off accessories. And the same thing with Glocks. There's so many aftermarket parts for them. Glocks are a tremendously fun gun to own. You can make them as tricked out as a staccato or as plain as out of the box, and they'll still be just as reliable. Incidentally, if you go visit now between now and October 31st, you get this awesome Glocktoberfest mug. Sorry for those listening. This is a Stein, and this Stein is unique to this year's Glocktoberfest. It's a new mug every year. So get that mug. Visit Proforce. Tell them you heard about them through the 911 Strong podcast. So, like I said, they were a tremendous help. A lot of businesses and people just came. They were a tremendous help to our agency. And, our agency is a medium-sized agency. We don't have the resources like an LAPD or an NYPD, but, we are pretty self-sufficient. We have our own honor guard. But if you've never been part of a police funeral, a tremendous amount of work goes into it. So we had help from a lot of different agencies, Huntington Beach, a lot of the motor agencies around us because we needed their motors, and we needed additional honor guard staff to supplement our honor guard. Um, so with that said, that was June 14th. I was working that day and I responded to the scene. I actually ran the command post for a little bit, for a lot of it. It was a trying 72 hours. And then liaisoning with the neighboring agencies, I had firsthand experience with how critical it is to receive help. So when the most recent tragedy happened out of Las Vegas, it was kind of a coincidence in the sense that we were already sending officers out to Vegas for a relay race that they're participating in. It is, look it up right now. It was called the First Responder Relay in Henderson, Nevada. And we were already going in honor of Mikey and Joseph. But days ago, just a couple days ago, on October 13th, Las Vegas Metro Police lost Officer Trung Tai. Trung Tai was gunned down on Thursday, October 13th, and our officers, about 50 agencies went out to Vegas just a couple days later to participate in this race. So it was nice. I wasn't able to go out to that race, but my buddies that were there sent me photos of the wreath we bought for their agency, and we supplied them with some patches and some monetary contributions. But more importantly, we wanted to let them know that we were there to support them because they supported us in our tragedy as well. And we're one big happy family, right? In law enforcement. And it really is. It's a time that we should all be mourning, but at the same time, it's really uplifting to see agencies from all over the country come in to support their officers. I actually had a longtime follower of mine reach out to me. She works for the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. She took a picture of the display that we took out there in honor of Officer Ty and sent me a message to thank my agency for memorializing him. But it's been a trying few days in law enforcement. Let's start with chronologically going backwards. So Officer Ty was shot and killed while responding to a domestic disturbance on East Flamingo Road at about 1 a.m., that graveyard shift, that weird time in the busy part of Vegas. So the subject apparently opened fire from inside of his vehicle as Officer Ty and his partner attempted to make contact with him at an intersection. And Officer Ty and a civilian were both struck by the subject's shots. Officer Ty succumbed to his wounds while being transported to a local hospital. The man fled the scene but was apprehended by police canine approximately 3 miles away after refusing to exit his vehicle. Officer Ty had served with the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department for 23 years and was assigned to the South Central Area Command. He is survived by his daughter. That's tough, man. I have 23 years on the job as well, and I've got 4 children, two girls, 2 boys, and my daughters they have my heart. There's a special bond between a father and a daughter. So I can't imagine this young girl having to live her life without her father. It's heartbreaking because the empathy is there because I can relate to it so much. He was only 49 years old. He had so much life to live, and it's just unfortunately that this happened. And I'm not going to talk about tactics or anything like that. That's not what this is about. This is just to memorialize Officer Ty. And just a day before Officer Ty was gunned down, a police officer from the Bristol Police Department in Connecticut was also gunned down. I'd like to talk to you a little bit about Officer Alex Hamzy. So he was only 34 years old. He had 8 years on the job. Um, so Alex Hamzy and Sergeant Dustin DeMonte were shot and killed in an ambush in front of a home on Redstone Hill near Birch Street at about 11 p.m. I can tell you, having lost two officers in the same incident back in June, this agency in Bristol, they're going through a tremendous, it's always hard to lose one officer, but I think that it's a shot in the gut two times when you lose more than one officer. So officers had responded to a business earlier in the evening in response to complaints about a disorderly patron. Officers responded to the call, issued the man a summons, and released him. The man then went home, armed himself with an AR-15 rifle, and made a fake 911 call reporting the disturbance to his home. As officers arrived at the scene, the man opened fire on them from the front yard. Officer Hamzy and Sergeant DeMonte were both fatally wounded, while a third officer suffered 9 non-life-threatening wounds. Very similar to our situation, too. What a lot of people don't know about at our agency when we lost Mikey and Joseph was another sergeant was also shot, non-life-threatening, but he was also shot. And he also just went through a lot personally as well. And I'm sure this officer that from Bristol that didn't die is going to go through some personal struggles himself. So the suspect was found dead with a gunshot wound at home. Officer Hamzy had served with the Bristol Police Department for 8 years, and he is survived by his wife, parents, and 2 sisters. And Sergeant DeMonte had been with Bristol for 10 years. He was 35 years old, and he's survived by his expectant wife and 2 children. That's tough, man. Didn't even get a chance to see his baby to be. And as I'm reading this, I'm getting a lot of emotions. I want to do right by honoring them on the show and reading their bios, but I also can't help but feel anger that a lot of this can be prevented, not by the officer's tactics, but the fact that these guys are in areas where crime is, the punishment for crime is soft, right? That we're seeing this throughout the country right now. That's a political stance for another show, another day. Okay, so just in a matter of 2 days, that's 3 officers. And sadly, the day before Officer Hamzy and Sergeant DeMonte were shot and killed out in Greenville, Mississippi, we lost investigator Maisha Brianna Stewart. She was also gunned down on October 11th. She was 30 years old. She was just a kid. She was shot and killed near the intersection of Reed Road and Rebecca Street during a vehicle pursuit at 7:30. So Greenville officers and deputies with the Washington County Sheriff's Office were pursuing a subject who had fled after shooting his girlfriend. The subject was taken into custody following the pursuit. Investigator Stewart is survived by her 3-year-old son and parents. She was shot during the pursuit. It's just freaky. It's always tough when kids are left behind too. So, in a matter of 3 days, we lost 4 officers, and it's just, if you've ever lost an officer at your agency, it just every time you hear about that, it just takes you back to when you the time you lost officers of your own. Prior to Mikey and Joseph, I had lost friends in the line of duty. But nobody I'd really worked with. I had one deputy, Joseph Solano, who was murdered. He was my academy classmate, but we didn't work together. And, and maybe other acquaintances that you've seen just throughout your career, you might have worked in passing with them and you've seen them go. And obviously it gets to you, but nothing gets to you more than losing people that you've known for a long. I knew Mikey since I started there. He was a jiu-jitsu practitioner. His firstborn was born within days of my firstborn. We worked patrol teams together. When I promoted to sergeant, he promoted to corporal, and he was my corporal for a little bit. Just an outstanding guy. And Joseph, I didn't know him very much because he was new at our agency, but I knew his parents very well. I worked with his dad my entire career. So yeah, having those personal relationships and personal work experiences with them, I think it makes them so much harder. And every time I hear of another officer going down, you would think you'd get jaded, right? You'd think you'd become desensitized. I think it's just nothing prepares you to hear that. It's just tough, or especially the more you dive into their personal lives when you know that they have children on the way. Or it's hard to empathize, especially if you're like me, you have a wife and kids. Well, I just wanted to. This episode was just to pay homage to those 4 officers. Obviously, we lost a lot of officers in 2022. I'm not taking anything away from them, but these were the 4 that we lost in a matter of 72 hours, and it was just a unique situation that I thought I wanted to highlight on this episode. Keep those families in your prayers, and keep all your law enforcement brothers and sisters in prayer, please. We need a revival. We need something in this country right now. We need God to lay his hand on this country, and just, we need protection over the people that are protecting people. All right. Thank you guys for listening to this episode of the 911 Strong podcast. God bless, and I'll talk to you guys later.